Hi, everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm your host, Dan Illman. Let's take a look at what's on tap for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicapper Mike Beer and I will take a look at three major stakes races, graded ones at that, from Churchill Downs on Saturday: the Stephen Foster, the Fleur de Lis, and the Wise Dan. David Aragona of Timeform US looks at the main event at Churchill Downs on Saturday, the Stephen Foster, plus horses to watch and best bets. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our horse watch segment. I like this one, Mike. Beer with the short pour.
Yeah, you don't want a short pour when you're out at the bar, but I think short pour might have been a horse who was getting a prep in. This is her first start off the layoff, first start as a 3-year-old and back on turf in this race. And it just felt to me like maybe they were giving her a race because Jose Ortiz did not get aggressive from the gate, took her back to last. Let's pick up the replay. He just let her sit inside the entire way. You can see as they turn into the stretch here, she's still at the back, but Jose's starting to ask her to run now, and she's got a real chance to get involved here. You're going to see things just don't work out. She got over behind Horse Theory, could not get her clear, and she lost her best chance right there, but she'll continue on after this, continue to make ground to the end. I feel like this was a perfect race off the layoff to set her up for her next start. This is a filly by the factory who showed some potential as a turf sprinter last year as a 2-year-old.
My horse to watch this week is up at Woodbine. His name is Dixie's Gamble, and Pink Lloyd can't dominate the sprint division forever at Woodbine up in Ontario. Maybe Dixie's Gamble is the heir apparent. Let's take a look at his most recent race. His second start as a 4-year-old. He broke inwardly from the inside post, got into the race early, and there he is just putting the boots to the field. I mean, Luis Contreras was looking behind him on the turn, and he settles this very quickly. Here at a 97 Beyer speed figure, it was the first fast race he's run in only his second start as a 2-year-old. He is lifetime 5-4-6 sprinting. He has a very sharp trainer in Josie Carroll. I like this horse's tactical speed, and it doesn't seem to matter whether it's 6 or 7 furlongs. I think Dixie's Gamble is stakes bound up at Woodbine. Let's get to some handicapping. The feature race at Churchill Downs on Saturday is the Stephen Foster. Let's throw up the field for Saturday's DRF race of the day. It's the Grade 2 $600,000 Stephen Foster, going 1 1/8 on the dirt, carded as race number 8 at Churchill Downs. You can access free Formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. And for expanded stakes previews of all the major races this weekend, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Our colleague Matt Bernier is down at Churchill Downs covering this race for NBC. You can also catch the Matt Bernier Show, a special edition, on Friday at video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, one of the big names in this race is Yoshida. Grade 1 winner on turf, Grade 1 winner on dirt last year. Thought he ran an underrated race in the Breeders' Cup Classic. But let's go back to his big win on dirt. It was at Saratoga, and he had a lot of pace to run at.
Yeah, the race set up really well for his closing style. You're going to see him. He's just fanned very wide here at the top of the stretch. There was plenty of pace for him to run at, but this is his main track debut. And he runs really well in here. Now, this was a closer's race. You're going to see him start to pick up the leaders right now. He'll get by to the lead inside the final 16th. The horse that runs second to him is Gunnevera, another deep closer. So this race really set up well for these two horses. But, you know, it was nice to see Yoshida show this versatility, show that he could handle the main track. I'm with you. I thought his race after this in the Breeders' Cup Classic was just fine. He ran well in there, too. He seems to be equally proficient on either surface.
It'll be interesting to see what we get in his first start coming back from Dubai, and he's likely to take a good share of money. You're looking for a better priced alternative, a horse that was so lightly raced last year and gave Justify pretty much all that horse could handle in the Preakness. It looks like he's coming to form now as a 4-year-old.
Yeah, that's number 7 tenfold in this race. And he is a horse who I'm very interested in this Stephen Foster, because you're right, as a 3-year-old, they threw a lot at this horse in a very short amount of time after his first 2 starts, which were both wins, Arkansas Derby, Preakness, Belmont for his next 3 starts. And he actually ran well in all of those races. He didn't have a great summer up there. I felt like maybe all that campaigning caught up with him. He didn't run his race in the Travers, but they stopped on him. They brought him back this year, and I think he's improved. Let's look at his most recent start. This is at Pimlico on Preakness weekend. It's the Pimlico Special. I thought he ran really well in here, Dan. This race did have pace for him to close into, but he just got a very confident ride from Ricardo Santana, set him back on the rail, off the pace, stayed in, and he's going to split horses here to take this thing over. I like the way that he finishes in here. He's going to hold off a pretty talented closer, and you're to blame. I like this performance from this horse, Dan. I think he fits really well in this field. a race that should set up pretty well for him. There's plenty of pace in here.
After being privately purchased by trainer John Sadler and owner Ronus Racing, Giftbox has really come into his own as a 6-year-old out in Southern California, of course, winning the prestigious Big Cap over a good horse in McKinsey, 2 starts back going 1.25 miles, and then getting pipped last time out in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Let's watch that race right now. He was up close to a solid pace, as was the winner Vino Rosso, who was outside of him, but I like the fight that Giftbox shows in the stretch. Just seems like a different Giftbox than we remember back in New York for Chad Brown, a horse that would nibble at the non-winners of 2 ranks and lose races at short prices. It just seems like Giftbox has gotten better as he's matured. He has the tactical speed to sit in mid-pack off what should be a hot pace, and I think he gets the jump on the true closers, horses like Yoshida and Tenfold turning into the stretch. I think 3-1 is fair on Giftbox. In this big, bulky, and competitive field, I wouldn't want to take much less, but I do think that off his recent form, Giftbox is the horse to beat. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. When we come back, we'll handicap the Fleur de Lis featuring Bill Mott's A Late.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
So you think horse racing is all about fancy hats and mint juleps?
But horse racing is a big business in the Commonwealth, from the breeding shed to the racetrack.
It's all part of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
So I bet you're wondering, where do I start?
We all have the same answer.
U of L,
U of L.
the University of Louisville.
We're all graduates of the Equine Industry Program.
So what are you waiting for?
The U of L Equine Industry Program has been developing leaders for over 32 years. Apply today.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 2 $250,000 Fleur de Lis going 1 1/8 at Churchill Downs. It's carded as race number 7 on Saturday evening, and they're going 9 furlongs, a very key distance for some of the horses in this race. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major races all weekend long, plus the Matt Bernier Show, Weekend Warrior with Mike Watchmaker, Game Plan with Marcus Hirsch, and lots more, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, I thought the breakout performance from She's a Julie came last year in the Iowa Oaks. It preceded a really nice effort in the Alabama, but you were really taken with her race 2 starts back, the Bayakoa, and there's a chance she's loose on an easy lead in this race.
Yeah, she certainly did get a lot better as her 3-year-old campaign went on last year, but I really liked her return from the layoff at Oaklawn this year. We're going to look at the replay right now of the Bayakoa. This is a race, we're picking it up already in the stretch, but she was taken on very early in this race before the half-mile pole and had to race off a couple of rivals, and she was up for that, even though she was off the layoff. You're going to see her just pull clear in the stretch. This is a new career top 96 buyer. Dan, she came right out of this race in the La Troyana Grade 1 and paired up the 96 with another very game performance. She's in great form right now, and as you say, she could be loose on a lead here.
She's the horse they might all have to catch. The horse they're all going to have to beat is the number 3, A Late. And I know some handicappers were disappointed that A Late lost at short prices in her first 2 starts this year. They also have to remember they've taken on a vastly improved Midnight Bisou at a distance that might be just a little bit short than her best. She's getting the 9 furlongs, and she's getting away from Midnight Bisou.
Yeah, her first 2 races as a 5-year-old, following a long layoff out of a great performance in the Personal Ensign last summer. Let's be honest, they haven't been her best. I didn't think she was terrible in the Azeri off the layoff. I thought that was a good place to start. We're going to look at a replay now of the Apple Blossom, where she is 3rd in this race to Midnight Bisou. This isn't her best performance. I totally understand anybody who's a little skeptical of A Late right now, thinking that maybe she hasn't come back as good as a 5-year-old. I'm going to keep the faith, Dan. I think the 1 1/8 is a better distance for her. I think that she has shown enough to think that she can still run. And if she shows up on Saturday and runs her best race, this field's in big trouble.
Blue Prize won this race last year, and I'm hoping that she can make it 2 in a row for trainer Nacho Correjas. Like a late, she's going to appreciate stretching out to 1 1/8 miles, and she really likes the home cooking at Churchill Downs. Let's go back to the Breeders' Cup Distaff, where she was 8-1 against horses like Monomoy Girl and Midnight Bisou, and she was in with a look at about the 3/16 pole before she finally got a little bit tired at the end of the race. She took a long time off after that. She returned on Derby weekend in the Grade 1 La Troyenne. It was 1 1/16 race. The race was a little short for her, and she gave up a lot of recency to She's a Julie. I thought it was a promising enough performance to build on. This will be her second start of the layoff. I think she'll be ready to go at 1 1/8 miles, and maybe her familiarity with Churchill Downs can get her over the top against a late. She's a Julie, the one they're all going to have to catch. Let's move from dirt to turf. The Wise Dan Stakes is just a wide open war. Let's throw up the field for the Wise Dan Stakes at Churchill Downs on Saturday evening. This race carded as race number 6. $250,000 is the purse. We are going 1 1/16 miles on the turf. It is a big competitive field with co-5-1 morning line choices. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races all weekend long, including the Wise Dan, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Itzen, the Post, certainly has credentials. He became a win machine for Jeff Mullins in Southern California, but he is getting older and he is returning off a long layoff. And sometimes when these West Coast horses cross the Rockies, the waters get deep.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with this in the Post. He is clearly good enough to beat this field, but there are concerns with this horse who, his last 2 races, the last two times we saw him last summer, they were not his best races, and they stopped on this horse after that. So it's a real question of how he's going to come back now as a 7-year-old. We're going to look at a replay of his Charles Whittingham last May. This is his 4th Grade 2 win of the year before things went wrong for him. He's just a really, really nice horse when he is right. But you have that long layoff to deal with, and you also have to deal with a very short distance as far as he's concerned, because he's been at his best going a lot longer than this.
You have to wonder if maybe this is just a prep for something longer down the road, but he is a hard-hitting, consistent sort that's probably going to give a very good effort as usual. You picked Tenfold in the Stephen Foster, and March to the Arch to me is kind of a similar profile. He showed a lot of potential as a 3-year-old, but it just looks like he's coming to hand now with added maturity.
Yeah, that's how I feel about him too. He ran some nice races as a 3-year-old. I think he found, the better 3-year-old turf horses in those graded stakes races a little bit too tough for him, but he ran pretty well in some of those races. He came back off the layoff this year as a 4-year-old. We're going to look at his first start back at Tampa. Now, this is a restricted race, the Turf Classic. He got a perfect trip in this race, and he will win it for fun. This is a very easy win. Out of this, Mark Cassidy put him right in the Turf Classic on Derby Day. I thought he ran well in there. He was no match for Bricks and Mortar. So far, nobody in this division's been a match for Bricks and Mortar, but I thought March of the Arch ran really well in that race, and I think this is a better spot for him. He's got an outside post. The distance could be a little short. I think he might be a little better at 9 furlongs, but I like the direction this horse is headed in, and he's shown some potential along the way.
I'm hoping for some improvement for the lightly raced number 12, Admission Office, who made his first start for Brian Lynch in his first start of the year. A successful victory at Keeneland against a pretty good group of non-winners of 2 other than. Based off that race, he ran in the Dixie last time out, and we're going to turn into the stretch, and you're just going to see he is last on the rail, and he's going to need a lot of things to go his way because that's a pretty good horse making his seasonal debut, Catholic Boy, that's going to win. Joel Rosario is going to pick his way in between horses. Admission Office is starting to kick right now, and you'll notice late in the game when he dives down towards the inside, Admission Office is finding his best stride. He really finished nicely, galloped out well, earned a competitive 95 buyer speed figure. This is his 3rd start back. I like him at 1 1/16 miles, and I think he'll get some pace. I think odds of about 6-1 seem fair for Admission Office and trainer Brian Lynch. David Aragona of Timeform US spotlights the Stephen Foster, and then stay with us. We still have best bets for Saturday on Out of the Gate.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. I'm going to be taking a look at the feature race at Churchill Downs on Saturday, the Grade 2 Stephen Foster Stakes, which goes as race 8 on their evening program there. I'll start by taking a look at the Timeform US pace projector before we get into the main contenders, and this race is predicted to feature a fast pace. You see the number 3 Runaway Ghost out towards the front end, along with the number 9 Tom's d'Etat and the number 10 Quip. Now, one thing to note about this pace projector is that when you scroll through all of these horses' Timeform US past performances and look at the Timeform US preview screen, none of them have speed or leader running styles. They're more tracker types, but all of them do want to be placed out towards the front, racing close to the pace. Even horses like Alcatam and Giftbox, they want to be up close contesting the pace. So while there's no clear front runner in this field, there are a number of horses that should be jockeying for position towards the front end, and I think that does make that fast-paced characterization a valid one. We'll begin by talking about that favorite that I just mentioned briefly, the number 6 Giftbox. Now, he's arguably one of the top older horses in the country right now by virtue of his win in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Handicap 2-back, where he defeated McKinsey. Last time out, he lost to Vino Rosso, who shipped from the East Coast out to the West Coast to take the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. Now, Giftbox, I'm not sure he's a horse that really is at his best going 1.25 miles. I know we got the distance 2-back in the Santa Anita Handicap, but he did so over McKinsey, who also doesn't really want to go that distance. So I think Giftbox is going to appreciate the slight cutback to 1.125 miles in this Stephen Foster. The problem that I have with Giftbox is he's a horse that seems to do really well with time between his races, and I'm just finding it a little odd that John Sadler is getting so aggressive as to run him back just 3 weeks up following that really tough effort in the Gold Cup at the end of May. So I think he's the horse to beat. If you look at Timeform US speed figures, he's routinely running in the mid to high 120s, and that just makes him faster than all of his competitors. But he's the kind of horse that I think is going to get bet down quite a bit off that 3-1 morning line. And at a short price, 2-1, 9-5, he's just not the kind of horse that I want to take as a favorite, given the questions about him coming back on that quick turnaround. His main rival is likely to be perceived as the number 12, Yoshida. I really have no problem with Yoshida. He's turned out to be a better dirt horse than I ever thought he would be. I was surprised by that win in the Woodward, but he ran a fine race that day. Wasn't the toughest Grade 1 field that we've ever seen, but he got the job done. And frankly, he ran even better in the Breeders' Cup Classic last fall. I know we got plenty of pace to close into. You see those red color-coded Timeform US speed figures. That was a race that did set up for a closer, but he was finishing on well at the end of that race, closing to be a close 4th. They tried turf after that. He didn't run in the Dubai World Cup. I'm not going to hold those efforts against him. Now he's coming back to the US. Sometimes these horses coming back to the States do need a race after Dubai. He's drawn the outside post position here. He's probably going to get the right pace set up once again, but he's a horse with a little bit of name cachet. He's got a bit of a following, and I think he's going to be a pretty decisive second choice in this race, and I think there's better value to be had elsewhere, particularly with the number 4, Seeking the Soul, who's my top pick in this race. I've always been a little bit of a fan of Seeking the Soul, and I think he's finally putting it all together, and he's really deceptively been in the best form of his career as a 6-year-old. He ran really well in that Pegasus World Cup at the beginning of the year back in January. I know he finished second in that race and got ahead of Accelerate at the end, but he was far behind City of Light, the winner. But if you watch that race coming around the far turn, he was having to weave through traffic. John Velasquez had to stop it, riding him at one point and steady him as horses were tiring in front of him. He actually ran really well to be second that day, and with a clean trip, he arguably could have been closer to City of Light at the finish. I don't think he was ever winning that race, but he could have made it closer at the end if he had gotten a clean trip from off the pace. I don't really care about the Dubai World Cup. He's another horse that 1.25 miles is kind of pushing it for him, and some of these horses, they just don't handle the Maidan dirt surface. He came back just 5 weeks later in the Ali Sheba, going 1 1/16, and to me that just feels like purely a prep race. To run him back that quickly with no layoff after Dubai, I'm not sure they were really looking to win that race. It was just a stepping stone to this ultimate goal with Stephen Foster. He's really picked it up in his workouts since that race. He's likely to get a favorable pace set up with all of those horses that want to be forwardly placed ahead of him, and he just always seems to run well at Churchill Downs. So I just think Seeking the Soul makes plenty of sense in this race, and if Giftbox and Yoshida get bet down off their morning lines, I could see him drifting up a little bit off that 4-1 and being a playable price in this race. So the number 4, Seeking the Soul, is my pick in the Stephen Foster on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike, give me something on the Churchill Downs undercard.
Yeah, we'll keep it at Churchill. Race 5 is the Grade 3 Matt win for 3-year-olds, a 2-turn 1.16 miles. I like the 3 Nolo Contesto. especially if he's only going to be second choice in this race. We'll see how the wagering all plays out. But I like this horse. We're going to throw up a replay now of his maiden win. This is back in January where he got hung wide around the first turn. He took the race to the horse on the lead right now, Omaha Beach, around the second turn. And he's going to duel this horse down through the stretch. I really like this performance. I thought he came out of it and ran really well again in his next start, where he didn't get a great trip in an allowance race. I think he fits really well in this race as he comes off a little bit of a layoff here. And if he's the second choice, I'm betting him.
Sprinting, I think, is going to be the key. A return to a sprint for my best bet. That's Aura Moore, number 9, in race number 10 at Monmouth on Saturday. Aura Moore won her first 2 starts sprinting on dirt at Gulfstream for Todd Pletcher by a combined 11 lengths. And then they stretched her out to a 1-turn mile where she was the beaten favorite in the Busher. We're going to look at that race right now for McElroy. She's got a big look at this. Turning into the stretch, I just think this distance was a little bit too far. She fought all the way down to the wire, but she finished third, and you can argue she was 4th best. Oxy Lady had all sorts of trouble in behind. After this race, they tried 2 turns in the Fantasy where she chased a fast pace and tired, and then they tried 2 turns on turf in the Hilltop, where I think she actually ran pretty well over a wet turf course. She is getting the cut back to a sprint that I believe she needs. She adds blinkers for Pletcher, and I think she can sit just off the pace on Saturday. That's number 9, Aura Moore, in race number 10 at Monmouth on Saturday. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.